Now, Minnesota, if they allowed us to do the job, it's a mess. There's something in the water up there, and I love the state. I won the state 3 times, but I got no credit for it. I won that state 3 times, but it's a rigged state, really rigged badly with the Somalians and the theft.
No, he did not win the state. President Trump making more false election claims. He has never won the state of Minnesota.
Not once.
Not once.
Nope.
The president also singling out this.
Never won.
No, he just didn't. He says he did, but he didn't.
In fact, if he ran this year, there would be a landslide defeat. He would be crushed now after what's happened in Minnesota over the past several months. So, no, never won. Again, there were 63 federal judges, many of them appointed by Republicans, many of them appointed by Donald Trump, who looked over all the facts and said, and I think they were quoting Louis Brandeis, looking at the complaints, and would just say, this is bullshit, and threw them all out, all 63. Right. The United States Supreme Court also using the same language as Brandeis for those challenges that went up to the United States Supreme Court. I think Learned Hand also would use that phraseology once in a while.
It's just, when he goes, I don't know where that was from, but he's never corrected on certain, platforms, and that's the
people just let him say it.
Promulgation of false information that he says every day, and especially focused on now elections that he claims he won when he did not.
When he did not. And again, the important thing is, and we've talked about it before, Jonathan O'Meara, you wrote the book on this. He knows he's lying. Mm-hmm. The people around him know he's lying. They know he didn't win. All the Trump-appointed judges know he didn't win. All the Republicans that were running elections in Georgia and Arizona and counting votes in Michigan know he didn't win. All the Republicans in Pennsylvania that were election officials that were counting votes know he didn't win. And most importantly, he knows he didn't win because after the election, he would go around grousing to people saying, I can't believe I lost to Joe Biden.
Yeah, a number of White House aides have relayed those stories from the weeks after the 2020 election. But Donald Trump cannot admit it publicly. He never has. He continues to lie about the overall election as well as individual states, including Minnesota. He has, as a brander and as a politician, been very effective by saying something over and over and over and over to try to almost make it be true. And he's trying to will it into existence. And there are some people in his MAGA universe who believe him. Or at the very least, they let him get away with it. At the very least, they let him get away with it. And that's why it's so important. That's why it's so important that every time he does make those claims, even if he won't be corrected in the moment by a friendly interviewer, he should.
I mean, I feel bad. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but he absolutely lost and never won Minnesota.
Never won Minnesota.
Never won it.
Nope.
And it's
never did. It's
important to get the facts.
Sad. Sad, yes.
So you heard the president in that soundbite also singling out Minnesota's Somali population. He's also repeatedly attacked Haitian communities, but now a federal judge has blocked the Trump administration from revoking the protected immigration status of those immigrants. Up to 350,000 of them are currently living in the U.S. under a temporary protected status program, or TPS, which grants them legal protections and work permits. That status was set to expire today. The Department of Homeland Security argued last year that extending this status was acting against the best interest of Haitian nationals. But in the ruling, the judge said Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem did not offer evidence that Haitians posed a threat to the U.S., nor properly consider Haitians' economic contributions. The judge wrote, taken together, the record strongly suggests that Secretary Noem's decision to terminate Haiti's TPS designation was motivated, at least in part, by racial animus. The judge said the protected designation will be extended pending judicial review and did not offer an expiration date.
You know,
Joe, it's hard enough for these communities who are living in such fear. I don't understand the cruelty. I'll never get it.
No. And the judge was right. It is, of course, it's racial animus.
Yeah.
That's what this is all about. And Gene, we remember the lies about the community in Ohio during the 2024 campaign, eating dogs and things like that.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, the Republican governors always said, please stay away. But I will tell you, I think there may be some Democratic operatives, the president wanting to go to Ohio, that would buy Greyhound bus tickets for every ICE member to go down to Ohio and destroy the Republicans' built-in advantage in in that state as much as they've completely wiped out the Republican Party in Minnesota. Like, this is such a losing proposition. And I'm sitting here I'm thinking, wait, they're fighting for the opportunity to go in and turn Ohio blue for the next 30 years as well?
Yeah.
Like, they're fighting to go in and terrorize communities in Ohio just like they terrorize communities in Minnesota. I mean, seriously, again, they're not moved by the morality of it, but at some point you would think somebody would be smart enough to say, hey, we're just handing this election to Democrats.
Yeah, but where is that person? That person has not stepped forward so far. You know, back when Donald Trump and J.D. Vance were claiming that Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, were eating people's cats and dogs, I went to Springfield, and the people who were loudest and most insistent in telling me, no, we want the Haitians here, we need the Haitians here, were the white Republican mayor of Springfield, Ohio, the mostly white factory owners and employers of the Springfield, Ohio area, who said, we need this workforce. This is a great workforce. These are fantastic people who learn quickly, who were diligent, who and without them, we're just going to crash. We won't have the workers we need to run our factories. And again, I mean, the judge alluded to that and talked about the economic contribution. So this is like totally counterfactual. And there are a whole lot of Republicans in Ohio who tried to tell him this, but there they go.
Just in the last couple of days, Republican governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, said, no, Haitians are valuable members of our community. And again, of the 84,000 or so Somali Americans who are in the Twin Cities, in Minneapolis, St. Paul, almost 60% of them were born here. So it's not even that they were immigrants. 60% of them were born here. And of course, the vast majority of the rest became naturalized citizens. So the idea that a few people who are here illegally and are Somalis cost him the election is just so far from the truth, it's hard to characterize it.